I'm Lord Doom for John Murphy TV, and today I'm with
Raye Caluori, sound engineer, occasional dabbler in music.
Okay, so tell us a bit about growing up and how you got into music first.
Probably the first musical, I got into music kind of quite young, like just with parents' records, older brother and sister.
What sort of music was that?
Well, the first thing I really liked, my sister brought home Hawkwind's first album.
Oh wow!
That she'd just been to see. And
which one was that? Was that not Warrior on the Edge of Time?
No, the one that's just called Hawkwind with Hurry and Sundown on it and Paranoia. And it was it scared the shit out of me. I was probably 7 or 8 at the time.
Wow.
And it was quite disturbing. And I kind of listened to that and I thought, this is not like anything else I've heard. And I started then looking, every time something came up that was a bit different, like, things like Kraftwerk, and, I got into it. And then I guess, then there was a blip where I really got into punk rock.
Right.
And which I still am.
You call that a blip?
It was a blip because that was it. I was listening to that pretty much for, a couple of years, not much else. And then I realised that I really enjoyed electronic music, so I started finding,
It's sort of like it was part and parcel, really.
It was. It was very quickly. I was like, "What you doing?"
Especially post-punk.
Yeah.
It was like, it's like they advanced quite a bit from just like bashing things.
Yeah. No, it was kind of, the first generation of punk was. The variety of Susan the Banshees, Dan, Sex Pistols, Stranglers, all the keyboard stuff.
Susan the Banshees were my favourite band of the time.
One of mine, no, they're excellent. But and then, so that was, I was into music quite early on, buying records. Had a couple of lame attempts at, I bought a bass guitar off a mate, but I could never get to grips with it, and then I bought a guitar. And I was cheap, really cheap. Kind of gave up, and then I didn't do much for a little while, and then got together. I was living in Yorkshire. I moved to London, and got together with a friend who we decided we were just going to pick up instruments, record everything, just see if we could come up with something that was musical. So we might run a drum machine. At the time, drum machines were very basic, like 2 sounds, kick drum and a snare, so almost like a metronome, and he'd pick up a guitar through pedals, and I'd pick up a bass, or the other way round, or I'd start playing some on a synth, and we kind of messed around for a year or 2, and then just decided we'd record. We started playing back the tapes that we'd recorded, because we were trying to get together most weekends and record for a couple of hours. And we started going back over everything. There's some really good stuff on it. And in the end, we realised we had enough to put together a whole, at the time, cassette-only releases were a big thing. The cassette culture thing in the, this was like early 80s.
It was very big.
Yeah, Sounds had a cassette corner, Sounds music magazine.
Yeah, I remember it.
Had a cassette corner where they list the latest releases. Yeah. And we put together like this, like 90 minutes or 6, I can't remember, but it was our first album. So we put together this cassette. We did a couple of gigs around it.
You made an album. Did you get funding for that album, or did you?
No, we recorded it in mine and his bedroom, because we would alternate between. I'd go over to his, or he'd come over to mine, and we'd record. Basically, how we did it. I both had 2 stereo cassette players, so we'd record on one, and then put the tape in the other one, run that through a tiny little 4-channel mixer, and record it onto the other one. So that was our way of multi-tracking, was just to record a cassette, play it back, and play over it.
Well,
so it was a very basic multi-tracking. It was kind of, the most basic you could do, really. So two stereo cassettes.
Did you ever put it on vinyl or anything like that?
Well, we kind of lost, after the second gig we did, there was a bit of a riot, and we kind of had a bit of a falling out, and lost touch with each other for 20 odd years. And then suddenly out of the blue, he got back in touch with me and said someone had tracked him down through his work. He was living in Canada now, and saying they wanted to, the cassette that we'd done in our bedrooms, they wanted to put it out on vinyl. And this was a company in I think Germany, and they was, saying, oh, it's one of our favourite albums, we want to do a vinyl, a limited edition vinyl release, 600 copies or
How
something.
many copies did you sell originally then?
20.
20, and that was from 20, you got that from selling 20, that's
We sold 20, we sent this little thing to Sounds which said, buy it, with my address on it, a full postal address, like you wouldn't do that these days. and no one turned up on the doorstep, sadly. But we sold about 20, and I know we sold one to someone in Washington DC, one to someone in Canada, one in Germany, one in, I think, Netherlands, and only one copy in the UK, and that was to someone in South East London that years later I met them, and I can't remember where the others were, but there was word had got round, and we kind of gave up after that, we lost touch. Then this person got back in touch, said...
what was the name of the band?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Third Door from the Left.
What was the name of the album?
Face the Firing Squad.
Wow, that's a good name.
We were teenagers at the time, so there's a picture on the front of us with balaclavas and pistols pointing outwards. And we tried to do a photo shoot in Lily White's in Piccadilly. And at the time, we were running around with balaclavas and guns, firing blanks.
Yeah.
If you did that now, you'd get shot. It never came out, that one.
You were telling me earlier about ghost stories you recorded when you were a child. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, my mother had a reel-to-reel, like small basic reel-to-reel recorder, and I got given a book of ghost stories for Christmas, and with a friend we decided it'd be great to record the stories but with sound effects, and so we just did these whole kind of hour-long kind of audio plays with just the two of us doing the voices and doing all the sound effects. And we'd go through the story and go, right, we need chains here, we need a creaking door here. We'd gather all this stuff together. And it was like, we were doing it like a radio play, but it's lost in, I don't know what happened to those tapes.
So is this what first got you into sound engineering?
I didn't think of for years that I didn't remember doing that until someone first asked me that question, what first got you into sound, and I thought that probably was. It was the idea of creating something kind of, some audio that kind of, moved people. It was, yeah.
So how did you get from playing music to actually saying, right, I'm going to set up sound? How did you do that? Because that's not easy, because you need to know quite a lot, and there's different types of sound engineering as well.
There
sound
is.
Engineering on albums, the TV, film, all sorts.
What I did, I worked in medical electronics for a few years.
What's medical electronics?
I was fixing EEG machines that do, like electroencephalograms. You stick electrodes on the head and it records the brain.
They're the ones that go beep.
No, that's an ECG.
Oh right,
yeah,
okay.
That's for the heart. It's kind of the same.
Everybody knows that from Monty Python. We've got a machine that goes beep.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But and I was studying electronics, and my job was to service and repair these machines.
Wow.
And to be honest, it gave me a bit of a knowledge of how because they have amplifiers on them and they have filters, because you want to cut out anything that's not the brain activity, so you have filters to cut out noise and stuff. So that gave me...
Where did you study electronics? Did you go to university?
I was doing a day release. I did a couple of years down in Kent and then a couple of years in Lewisham, funny enough. And I got a qualification in it, but I just got bored with the job. And I was rummaging around going, what can I do? And at the time, I'd already been doing a lot more recording at home. I think I had a 4-track by then. And I was kind of thinking, what interests me? And then I kind of thought, maybe sound. And I put the idea aside for a while. I kind of I left the job, bummed around, kind of bounced around from one thing to another for a couple of years, doing a bit of DJing and doing kind of half running a club with friends. And then at one point I realised I had to kind of pick myself up. So I got a job that I didn't enjoy at all. And
what was it?
I was caretaking on a council estate.
Wow.
Which in South East London, which was rough as you can imagine, and being threatened by a bunch of teenage, you're just thinking, you're half my size, but you've got a knife, so I'm not quite sure how to deal with this, and having your windows smashed in every other week, and it was kind of, no, I'm not enjoying this. I've got to get out of this. So I kind of decided to leave that, and. Because I was just thinking, what shall I do? And then the sound thing suddenly popped back into my head. So what I did, I was going to a friend's gig that night, funny enough at the Crypt in Deptford. Right. And I just said to him, who's doing your sound tonight? I called them up and I said, who's doing your sound tonight? And they told me it was this guy, Jeff. So I said, will you introduce me to him? And they were like, well, yeah, all right, So basically what I did, I walked up to the guy and I said, look, I'll work for you for nothing for a year. If after a month I'm a hindrance rather than a help, get rid of me. If not, if you keep me going, I'll work for you for nothing for a year, but you teach me all you know. And he just went, all right then. So
the problem with that is what you're doing for money.
I was still doing the caretaking during the day,
okay.
so I was. That was keeping me. That was the thing. I'd thought this through and thought I can't just walk out of one thing and then train for it. So I was doing that during the day, and in the evenings going off to, and and he was this. I've got to give him a shout out, Jeff Beaumont, brilliant, at Borneo PA he was, and he was amazing. We stayed in touch for years, but this was kind of before the internet and before mobiles. And there was some point where we lost touch because he went off to work on to get into engineering or something, like another type of engineering, and I lost touch. But I'd love to get back in touch with him now actually and show him, because I'm at the moment I'm at quite a nice level in engineering. I work here apart from anything, and I tour with a fairly decent band.
So you've worked for them for a year. You must have done a lot of bands. You must have travelled about, done a lot of bands and stuff.
Yeah,
how did you sort of like say, right, I'm on my own now? How did you get jobs and how did you do it?
Well, I'll tell you what. The first thing he did, I think I've been doing it, helping him out for about 3 months, and he kept saying to me, "You've got to mix a band," and I was like, "I'm not ready. I'm too nervous. I don't think I can do this." So what he did, he suddenly said, I've had a message, I've got to run home. You're going to have to mix the band. And if I remember right, it was Osric Tentacles.
Oh right, I know.
The Crypt. And I remember it was one of those nights, one of those psychedelic nights. And he just went, "You've got to do it." And I was absolutely, thinking this could go horribly wrong. But I did it. And I found out afterwards that he told the club owner, like, "I'm just outside in the van if there's any problems."
So he did it to help you?
He did it to push me.
Oh, that's great.
And after that, I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I ended up doing some paid work with him for a while, which was great. But then, he gave it up a while afterwards. I bought some of his PA, and then very quickly realised that lugging PAs in and out of places was not great fun.
Oh, that's very good.
And
take it off to be honest.
I should too. Yeah. We should both do it, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should. We should. If it bloody will turn off, I think it is. Oh, here we go, it's gone.
Apologies for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me.
My fault.
Well, it's fine. Anyway, I'm having trouble with mine. But so carry on. So where were we?
So so I did some paid work with him for a while, and then I got to the stage where, because he always provided the PA and his services, so it was loading speakers in and out. And then I did one gig where the PA was already set up in the place, and I thought, this is the way to do it. What am I doing, lugging boxes in and out? And I'd still not managed to pass my driving test at that point, so I was always relying on other people to drive the gear around. So I just sold the PA stuff I had, and started taking on jobs. I mean, for quite a while, not very well paid, doing bands, like a band.
So how did you get the jobs though? I mean, sort of like
just word of mouth.
Really?
I just kind of put word out. I knew a lot of music. I'd always known a lot of musicians. That's the thing. I'd always hung out with. Whenever I went to gigs, I'd hang out with bands and kind of, get chatting to them, and I'd become friends with a lot of bands. So at the start, it was good. It was kind of, it was, I guess, fairly easy to start with. But then, where did I go? And then I got offered a job at a venue in Woolwich as a stage and technical manager. So it wasn't there was a sound engineer in there, but they wanted someone to kind of oversee everything and do the stage management. So I stepped away from doing sound for a little while, and went into that. And I mean, it was great because I got to meet because they used to have a comedy night every Saturday, so I got to meet people like Lee Evans and Harry Hill and stuff before they were huge names. Mark Lamar was there, all sorts of people. So that was a great. I was there for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and they'd have it was a small venue, but they had some decent bands on there.
So what point did you say, right, now I'm a professional, now I've got it sorted? There must have been a point when
I think I still haven't.
Really? Yeah.
No, I'll tell you what, there was a point where I was kind of, I was doing jobs for, bits of money and stuff, and you kind of go, this is all getting a bit messy, and I can't charge, I'm charging stupidly low prices for this. And suddenly someone offered me a job that was the proper going rate. And I realised, but it had to, and I was kind of, do you know what? This is what I should be charging for every gig. So that's what I'm doing from now. And I still now, I'll do gigs for mates, for nothing or little money. But generally I've got a fee now and that's it. And I think it was that point where I went, right, I need to set this up as a proper business. So, I had to, register with the tax, went down and they were actually not as scary as I thought they were going to be. I went down and had this interview with them and said, look, I've been doing this for a couple of years, just casually, but now I want to set up a business. They went, okay, registered me. And then, that was when it became a serious thing, because then I had to earn a living from it. That was it, really.
So how did you get involved with the 100 Club? Because obviously this is probably one of the most famous clubs in London for bands.
It is. I was working at I was doing the rounds of, I was working at a place called Madame Jojo's down the road.
Sounds like a brothel.
It was a drag club at the time. It's closed down now, sadly, but at the time, when I worked there first, it was a drag show every night of the week, apart from Sunday. And then it became more a venue. They'd still have drag a couple of nights a week, but it was mainly a venue and a club. So I was working there, but at the same time, I was only working there kind of full-time for a while and then part-time. And I was doing loads of different venues. So I was jumping, one night I'd be in Camden, next night I'd be in Ladbroke Grove, next night I'd be in kind of Islington. I was jumping from venue to venue, just basically, I'd put word out to engineers that I knew, anyone needs cover, just call me. And so people would saying, I'm going on holiday for a week, can you cover my shifts at this club? And I was getting plenty of work, but I was kind of, this is a lot of, I was living in South East London, travelling up to North London and then having to get back, and some of the gigs were club nights, so it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just, this is a bit much. But then this guy Chris, who got me into the Barfly, the Barfly? In Camden, yeah. It got me working in there when it was, in fact before it was the Barfly, when it was the Falcon and the Monarch. He got me in working both
I remember the
of those.
Falcon, it burned down once. I ran past it one day. The Falcon, that's down near Kentish Town, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
between Camden and
I was
Kentish
there the
Town.
night it burned down. I was going
Oh,
past
were
it.
you?
Thanks.
I wasn't anywhere near.
I hated the publican that owned the place. So my mate had a fight with him a couple of weeks before, and we were going past it. It was burning down. Serves him right.
Oh, no, I liked the place. I had some great nights. I worked there one night, and Geezer Butler, because it was a little room at the back room of the pub, and Geezer Butler was playing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is ridiculous in a tiny back room, But I was doing all that, and then Chris, that had got me those jobs, he was chief engineer here, and he called me up and he said, I need a couple of nights covered at the 100 Club. Can you do them? And then I started doing more and more. I'd do a couple of nights. I got on well with the owner, Jeff, who's great. And then Chris decided he was leaving, so then more work came up, and it kind of went up and up, and then he handed over to Tony, who after a while he wanted to go off and train to be a teacher, so I then became chief engineer, and I was chief engineer for 12 years, I think.
What was he teaching? What did he have to teach?
I don't know what, I can't remember. I can't remember. It wasn't anything to do with sound though.
Right, okay.
And yeah, so I've been here, so 2000 was the first gig I did here.
So that's like 24 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've been here, 23 years I think, because I think it might have been late 2000. But
So tell us about...
Pardon me, sorry. Is that air conditioning?
no, it's the fridges. I can't.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
It's going to come out, but we might be able to take it out.
Yeah, it's a bugger because I can't switch them off.
No, that's all right. All right. Sorry. Continue.
It's also the cooling for the because the cellar is behind there. It's not underneath. So
tell us about some of the bands you've actually worked with, because you must have worked with bloody everybody by
well,
now.
the thing down here is there's the whole range. You get like I've mixed Chuck Berry's sound down here before.
Oh, really?
And he was lovely. Despite all what you always hear about him, he was one of the nicest people. He came down for sound check. He was really pleasant, really friendly. I had crew on for that because I needed we had to hire in loads of extra gear. But so I've done Chuck Berry down here, Alabama 3. Some of my favourite gigs, like Alice Cooper, when Johnny Depp got up and played with him.
What, down here?
Down here.
Wow.
Was that after the trial with what's the name?
It was years before that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was years before that. It was when they were in London shooting a film called Dark Shadows, and Alice Cooper just decided he wanted to play down here. He got his people to phone up to see if we had a free night.
Wow.
And that was it. And I was standing at the front of the stage. Like Alice Cooper is standing directly in front of me. I'm just plugging a monitor in. And I looked at, and he's singing Schools Out, and I'm thinking, this is such a good job. And then I looked behind me, and there was someone standing at the back, and I thought, that bloke really looks like Johnny Depp. And then Alice Cooper goes, Johnny, come on, let's do that number. And they got up and they did. So what they were doing a mashup of Schools Out and Pink Floyd. We Don't Need an Education or something.
Oh yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So they were doing a mashup of that, which was
The Wall, is it from the Wall album? I can't remember.
yes, I can't remember. I can never remember titles.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It is a good job you got all right, isn't it?
it's great. Yeah, and the night when Gorillaz played, they had the Gorilla sound system here, so it wasn't actually
Was
Gorillaz.
Gorilla an actual band though? Did they
No,
actually play?
it was all there were some musicians up here, so there was like a drummer and a few people, but they had a screen across the front with projection, so projecting all the cartoon characters on it, and all around the room. But I was at the bar at one point, standing there with Damon Albarn, Bobby Womack, Nena Cherry, and De La Soul.
I've met Nena Cherry.
Oh shit, Nena Cherry's
I
lovely.
used to buy bootleg films from the shop in Camden, and I used to see her in there all the time. I was
She
chatting to her.
was
She's a nice
really
girl.
nice.
Nice
but
girl.
She wasn't even performing that night. She just was just down, you know. So there's been. I mean, the thing is, I could go through a list of favourite gigs down here, and it's hard because there's so many. You know, I generally what I do is I'll look around the walls and kind of go. Like what the a lot of my favourites are not the biggest gigs down here. Some of them are like Kevin Coyne. I did one of his last gigs down here, and he was ill at the time with a gas. You know, he had this chest condition from when he was a kid, and he was amazing. You know, and Desmond Decker. You know,
The Dominoes, bloody hell, that's going back.
I did him. No, this was one of his last gigs. I think it might have been his very last gig. This was 2010
I think we've seen him at the Rainbow in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, but he was old by this time. This was in my time here, so it was 2000s. But he was brilliant. You know, it was an amazing gig. But yeah, it's such a variety, and you know the people I've met, like Humphrey Littleton, which musically wasn't my favourite gig. It's amazing, you know, what he does with his bands. But I was talking to him before the gig, and he said to me, right, so what? And he started talking, and I phased out because I knew his voice so well, Humphrey Littleton, from listening on a little radio when I was a kid to like, you know, radio programmes. You know, was it Just a Minute that he used to do?
I don't know, I remember him.
He used to do loads of radio and I just knew his voice, and I was watching it, and he said to me, "Young man, are you listening to me?" And I went, "I'm really sorry, but I know your voice so well, I've just phased out completely." And he went, "Oh, okay, I'll let that one go." You know, and he was just...
The best gig I've seen down here personally was Charlie Watts.
Was that?
It was like a fundraiser for a guy that had cancer, and Charlie was playing the drums.
With, did he have Ben Walters on piano as well?
I think he did.
There was two pianos set up on stage.
Yeah, this is a long time back. And I was speaking to him at that bar, and he signed a load of CDs from him, and he was such a gentleman.
Yeah.
Such a really nice guy, man.
Yeah, him I've not met, but I met Ronnie Wood a few times down there.
I met him
He just he'll turn up and just, if it's a band he knows, he'll just get up and play.
Yeah.
You know, just like, give us your guitar. You know, he's nice.
Have you worked on any albums?
Of my own stuff.
Well, no, just people's albums. Like, have you done sound engineering on people's albums and stuff like that? Or films or anything like that?
I've worked on a lot of film sets, but more in a kind of because particularly the club that I used to work at, they used to have a lot of film shoots down there. So I spent 2 weeks down there with Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, wow.
He filmed. It was one scene from Eyes Wide Shut.
Wow,
So
really?
Stanley Kubrick and Tom Cruise.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And my job there was literally to help them set up the lights, because he wanted to use the stage lights we had in there and natural lights. So I was just looking after the club. But Stanley Kubrick was ruthless to all the people that worked for him. You
Right.
know, if they stepped out of line, he was like, right, you know. But to me, because I wasn't a film person, and he told me this afterwards, he was nice as anything. He spoke to me gently and politely and said, "Would you mind?" You know, everyone else is like, "Right,
Because they think Eyes Wide Shut's the film that got him killed. They think that might. Do you believe in that?
No, he died. He was ill.
He was ill. Yeah,
I could see he was ill.
But there's a big conspiracy thing going on about Eyes Wide Shut, and there was like, wasn't there something like 30 minutes cut out or something like that?
Yeah, but that's because he didn't edit it, because it's like Steven Spielberg, I think, and someone edited it.
No.
But that was a great experience. Like, 2 weeks with him down there.
So, tell me some of the craziest things that have ever happened in your career, because you've had a big career. I mean, you must have, some crazy stuff must have happened that you've got.
I can't, I'm trying to think. This is my problem. If I don't write stuff down, which I've started doing now, I can't spring to. When you say crazy...
Well, just say, what's the maddest gig you ever did? How about that? Would that make it easier? The maddest gig you think, bloody hell. Anything like that?
God. I'm terrible when I'm put on the spot like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess... No, I don't even... There's one that I don't even want to talk about because it involved some kind of European far-right people that... And I'm not sure... Yeah, it was one of the scariest gigs. I'm not going to say who it was or where or anything, but there were people in the audience that had tattoos of Hitler and Himmler on their chests and their backs.
Oh my God.
And they had their shirts on, and I was just like, so I was just like, I'm not working on this again. This is just no, So that was a bit of a, scary moment. God, I'm terrible at remembering. I actually look around the walls sometimes for a clue because quite often it's stuff down here. I'm terrible at thinking. I mean, there's moments that are mad, like one that I'm doing down here. Sylvain from New York Dolls was down here with a trio.
Yeah.
Just him and two guys. Great rhythm section. Playing, and they were doing some of his own stuff, some New York Dolls stuff. And I literally looked down at the desk at one point. When I looked up again, there's Clem Burt, the drummer from Blondie, on drums. Yeah. There's Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols on bass. And I just went, this is now 3 people on stage whose records I bought as a teenager. And it was just one of those moments you go, that's why I do this. for moments like that just,
So, where would you like your future to go? Because, I mean, do you think, what would you like to do in the future? Would you like to continue doing what you're doing, or would you like to do other things as well?
I do my own music still, but I've never really, I've been in loads of it. I did kind of after Third Door from the Left, I had a big gap, but then I did a band called Hydra, which is kind of techno-punk, then I did Leitrim, which is like an industrial punk band. And now I do most of my solo stuff I do under the name Identity Known, and it's kind of mainly electronic, but some kind of field recording stuff. And I really enjoy doing that, and doing sound full time. Like last year, I was on tour the whole year, because I do live sound for Sleaford Mods as well. That's kind of my main job these days. I do much less down here. And last year we were on tour so much, I just didn't have time to, really get into the studio and get stuff done. So I'd like more time to do that. But I want to keep doing sound, like live sound, as long as I can. As long as my ears seem to have held out all right so far. I had them checked a few months ago.
You've got an album coming out, haven't you? Later in the year.
Yes, I have. It's a project I've been working on. So it's like I started during the first lockdown. I had this idea because I've been doing a lot of kind of experimental kind of soundscape stuff, and I had this idea of asking, because I knew quite a lot of well-known people and also people with interesting voices. I thought, if I can just get people, because this kind of soundscape stuff, it'd be nice to have some voices in amongst it. So I just emailed, I selected a few people that I thought would be up for it and would be good for it. and just emailed them all and said, look, would you send me a little recording of you, a couple of minutes of you talking about something, and I gave them a few little buzzwords and said it can be around this or whatever you want. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to stick to this severely.
Were they famous people?
There was a few. Both the guys from Sleaford Mods did it for me. They did wonderful bits.
How did you get involved with those?
Sleaford Mods did 2 nights down here, and it came up in the diary, and I'd never heard of them. This was, I can't remember. I think it was 2014, and I was getting all these phone calls from people saying, "Can you get me on the guest list for this gig?" And I was like,
I could imagine.
I was like, who are these blokes? And so I went right online on YouTube, watched Tied Up in Knots, thought, what the fuck is this? And I was like, I don't get this. What's all the fuss about? And then I started watching more, and then I'm watching, and by the end of it, I'd been on for about 3 hours finding
because they're very unusual. They're more like sort of poetry or sort of like rap, but it's not really.
I always call it punk hip hop.
Yeah, maybe
for me, that's what it is.
It probably is.
They would probably disagree. They have different ideas, but they. In the end, I did those 2 nights down. I thought they were so good. I went to Berlin. I was trying to organise a trip to Berlin, and I saw they were playing, so I kind of went along to see. I emailed their manager, who'd run the nights down here, and said, can you stick me on the guest list? Because I knew it had sold out already, SA36 in Berlin. And I went along to the gig, thought it was brilliant, met up with them for a drink afterwards, and they said, we've got, you did a great job when we played at the 100 Club, because they didn't do a sound check down there, it was just kind of, I had to have it set up, they turned up, did it, and they said, you did a great job there, would you do our next tour, UK tour? So I was like, yeah. And I looked at them and I went, really? It's like 3-4 channels, like, what, and they were like, no, we've had real problems on a lot of the gigs, there's people just can't get it right. So I did this tour, and kind of, that was it really.
Well, that is a thing, because I went to see Sisters of Mercy once. I never saw them in a day. It was a band I missed, so I went to see them about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And the sound was fucking awful.
I heard.
You heard it?
I heard on recent gigs, yeah.
Yeah. It was terrible. I mean, I'm like, what the fuck is... And, you go to gigs, and I've never heard a band that sound that bad.
No, I've heard that a lot. The first time I saw them was they were supporting the Virgin Prunes.
Oh, yeah.
At the Electric Ballroom.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And we're getting back to the album.
Okay.
We've drifted off. Yeah, tell us more about. Tell us about your album.
Will you edit this a bit later?
Sorry?
Are you going to edit this a bit later, or?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
When everything is working.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about your album. You've got these voices on there.
So I've got these people sending me voices, and my initial idea was to use the voices as sounds. So not really use the phrases, use little phrases, maybe little sentence here, word here, use them as sounds within the music. But some of the bits that people sent me was I just was transfixed by, like Steve Ignorant sent me one, which was a story of him walking around his old haunts in London. And it was just brilliant. And I just thought, I'll edit these so that they fit, but I've got to keep the basis of what they've said. And have you heard of Son of Dave?
Yeah,
blues.
I met him.
Oh, Benjamin, who is Son of
I met
Dave.
him
He
at
was
the
the first one that sent me one, and it was basically a story about a dream. He's basically talking as he does, and he's going with his great Canadian accent, and he's kind of had this dream about this place where women just tried to be perfect, and it was all wrong, and it was such an interesting story. I was like, I'm just keeping that, and I did do little edits, and I tried to make it kind of musical. Who else have I got on there? I've got a couple of authors actually who Do you know John King, who wrote The Football Factory?
Oh no, I've
I
seen
know
the
the
film,
Football
obviously.
Factory.
Yeah, he did one for me. And who else? Lenny Beige, who's kind of a character. I always say he was. Austin Powers stole his character from him. He's a kind of cabaret lounge singer kind of character that he plays. But it's an actor called Steve First who I've become good friends with. And Gay Advert from The Adverts, the old punk band. She did a little one for me. Various people you might not have. I mean, Joe Clans, who's a kind of musician, performance artist, you know, kind of lives in Berlin. He did a great one for me. And these things were just arriving, and I was just like, and I half of what I'd written for the album, I adapted to fit around them. But then I wrote a whole another side to fit some of the other ones that I'd got because they just needed something new. And yeah, and I'm really pleased with the results.
So where can we hear this album?
Well, this is the thing. It's finished, and it took me ages to mix it. I left it for about 8 months because I just couldn't quite get it sounding how I wanted. And then my dear friend Steve Crittall, who he's an amazing guitarist, has played with everyone, right? He's played with the UK Subs, the Selector, Godfather. It's like he's brilliant, but he's also an amazing engineer, like studio engineer, as opposed to I think I'm all right as a live engineer. I'm terrible as a studio engineer.
Oh right,
because
I wanted to ask you about that, but okay.
I just
So what's
live. You've got to do it there and then. And I try and do that in the studio, and then I'm like, oh no, actually I can go back now, can't I? And then I keep going back, and I just go insane, and I get too picky. But Steve, I took it over his, and we sat there, and he went, right, and he picked out a few things that I'd missed. It was about 2 hours, and he cracked it, and I was like, that's done. You know, he's got a way, he can just home in on things better than I can, you know. So it got finished, and then there was some talk, because I originally did it as a really long, I wanted to do it as a CD and have it as just one really long track. But then the more I worked on it, the more I realised it would work really well on vinyl. So I reduced it from about 80 minutes down to 36. Which is the optimum for if you've got a lot of bottom end on it.
Now the editing, because I've written a few books and stuff, editing, now that's a problem. Did you have a terrible problem? I don't want to get rid of this, but I've got to get rid of it.
I've kept everything in a folder.
Right.
But I've kind of cut bits out and rearranged things, and I just kept reducing things, and it was hard. But
could that possibly be another album?
There is a possibility. I don't even want to think about having to mix. I'd have to then remix that one. But yeah, probably not. Maybe if someone wants it as a freebie at some point, if they buy the album. But I've got it. Yeah. So there was a few people were looking into trying to get someone to release it on vinyl, but there just wasn't any. You know, it wasn't moving, you know, it wasn't happening really. So I've given up with that, and I've decided I'm just gonna, now that it's done, I'm gonna set up an online thing and just upload it, and people can pay for it if they want, but people can listen to it, you know.
Okay, so have you got an address for that yet? Or,
it will be soon.
Okay,
that will be coming.
I'm dying to hear this album now.
I think it's good. It's kind of one of the pieces of work that I'm most proud of.
Wow.
It's not what you'd expect. There's some of it people have said is a bit like the Orb, some is a bit like Jean-Michel Jarre's,
okay.
You know, there's a big mixture. Some of it's just very ambient.
I think Oxygen just about done Jean-Michel Jarre because they kept playing it on bloody mad in
Yeah.
It drove you bloody mad.
But he did some other good stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah. But you know what I mean? It's just, just couldn't get your head around Oxygen. I mean, God, do I really need to listen to it? And everybody was playing it, went around someone's house and go, have you heard this album? Oh, not you as well. But there you go.
So when is it coming out then? You reckon?
Well, I've got a few weeks off now, so I'm going to set up an online thing. Because what I want to do, I've got about 3 or 4 other projects that are almost finished, related to this. That
Okay, and what are they?
so Hydra, which is one of my old bands that I did with these guys Nick and Roger. Roger was on metal percussion, Nick does vocals and writes the lyrics, and I was doing most of the music. We did one album which we finished, which we were happy with, which was great. We recorded another one, which we tried for a year to get the mix right on that, and just none of us were happy with it. It was like, do you know what? So in the end we shoved it aside. I want to get that finished, but I've also, side to that, I was working on a track in my, Nick from Hydra actually lives on the floor above me, and I was working in the same house. We're housemates, and I was working on a track. And somebody went, and we haven't done anything together for a few years now, and he just went, this would really fit some lyrics that I've got, and I went, all right. So we just quickly recorded, and we've basically recorded 2 tracks as a single that we need to just finish and get that out. But someone I know that does limited vinyl runs is going to actually press that for us.
So you ever going to get together and play a gig again?
No, that side of Hydra is done.
So what do you prefer, making music or sound engineering? Or is it the same thing?
I guess equally. I mean, when I get, it's like, I mean, I love Sleaford mods, and you know, I must have seen them a ridiculous amount of times because I've been doing them full on since about, so it's about 8 or 9 years now, like full, non-stop. And I love doing them, but then there's the other thing that when I come back down here, luckily, because I'm only doing a few nights, I can kind of, and the Tony, who's back being chief engineer now, he lets me choose a few gigs each month. So I choose bands that I enjoy working with or that I really like. So I'll get behind that desk and there'll be 999 on stage. And
yeah, I was there. That was really good.
You were there at that, and you kind of go, you know, I bought these records. It's brilliant. I'm getting to mix these songs.
If I'd have known they were playing, I would have brought my album down. I've still got it somewhere.
But things like that, you just kind of go, this is great. You know, this is, I get a thrill doing that still.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, loads of it. Like doing TV Smith the other week down here. It was just a joy because it's people whose records you know the songs. And thankfully, I've become friends with a lot of the people whose records I used to buy. So that side of it is great. You know, I love the engineering. I do love making noise though. I'm just terrible at finishing projects, finishing albums, and kind of, you know, it's.
Well, Orson Welles had the same problem. He could never finish anything. He just never stopped fiddling with stuff.
No, that's the problem. I'm constantly going, oh, this could be better, you know. And what I need is someone to be behind. Like, this is why people have producers, because the producer goes, it's done, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Put it out, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't have that. I just have me saying.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Right,
Well, say enough is enough, you know. This is it.
But that's the thing I'm doing with this little bit of time off is I'm just going to sweep through and just go and give myself on each thing 2 days, and just say if it's not whatever's not done at the end of that, you know, that's tough.
But it's because was it Peter Jackson? He did Lord of the Rings. He said he would keep fiddling with his films until someone actually tells him to stop.
Yeah.
And he would never stop, you know.
No.
It's but it was But yeah, I can see that being a problem.
Yeah.
John, is there any further questions you'd like to ask before?
Who's your next big gig?
God, in fact, the next gig I'm doing is a Sleaford Mods one, and it's a fairly big one, but I'm not allowed to say what it is or where it is.
All right.
Is it in town?
I can't say.
Maybe.
I can tell you I think the next gigs I'm doing down here, I'm doing the Doctors of Madness, who Richard Strange was the main guy, and they were one of the Sex Pistols' first ever gigs was supporting them.
Really?
And they were doing really well. They were kind of forerunner of punk bands, really. They were kind of theatrical, I think really they were a punk band, but because they were of one of the bands that were already there, people kind of pushed them aside. All the record companies just went, no, we can't bother now. This new thing's come along that we're interested in. And so they didn't get the recognition they deserved. But Richard, the main guy, started doing gigs again, and they're great. I put my name down for that gig every time. And the nice thing is that this time, a friend of mine, Johnny, is playing support in Band of Holy Joy. So that makes it an even nicer night.
I interviewed him.
I know. I read it. I watched it.
Oh, you watched it? Oh, right.
Really good.
I don't think anybody watches my interviews.
And then kind of just loads of big festivals over the summer with Sleafords.
Do you enjoy festivals?
I can't bear them.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I mean, doing them from this. I hate being at festivals, but doing the gigs is great because it's
happening. It must be something else.
You're straight in. You set up. You barely ever get a sound check. Occasionally, you get up, you go and eat, you come back, do the gig, you go back to your hotel. It's like that's the way to do it. Yeah. I don't want to be walking around muddy fields or
sitting in a tent somewhere in the rain.
No, I just can't do that anymore.
I
made the mistake.
I used to enjoy it back in the day.
Me too.
You get to a certain point, when you're thinking, nah, this is too much. Festivals like for the young people, I think. When we used to climb over fences to get 12-foot fences to get in these places. I mean, I remember climbing over 12-foot fences to get in the Glastonbury once in my youth. And I'm thinking, I couldn't even get I'll be buggered now, you know what I mean? It's like, but you know what I mean? And sitting in a tent for days on end, who the fuck wants to do that,
I mean, I went to Stonehenge when that was still going, and that was like probably the year before it stopped, or a couple of years before that. And I really enjoyed that because it was really relaxed, apart from the bikers getting up to know, but they were fine. If you didn't bother then, left you alone. But that was great. Glastonbury never interested me at all. I was like,
I tell you what, it doesn't now. I mean, it's like ridiculous
too
now.
commercial
It's totally. But I always used to think that these Glastonbury, they used to give all the money to charity, but they don't. You know what I mean? They don't. And it's so, I don't know about Glastonbury. It's just.
The fees for the artists are ridiculously high.
Yeah, sure.
I've been there now. I've only been there about 5 times, I think now, but with Sleafords.
Did they play on the main stage?
No, not yet. No,
really?
We've played various.
Oh, yes.
We've done like, I don't even know. I remember the names of some of the stages we played on.
So many stages.
We did the Park stage.
Right.
And then the next year, I think we did Shangri-La stage, which was a step down.
Oh, wow.
Not the next year, a couple of years later, and then we did a bigger one last time we were there.
Did you expect them to be on the main stage?
Yeah, I mean,
I think so.
Would you like to do the main stage at Glastonbury, or do you think?
Do you know what? It's all the same to me.
Yeah.
Well, whether I'm doing, a little 300 capacity club, or whether I'm doing, we did the last gig of last year with Sleaford's was Alexandra Palace.
Yeah.
Which 8,000, 9,000 people, and it was just like, I mean, I was nervous as anything before that, because when I walked in and I saw all the people and I went, this is huge. But then when the gig, I just thought, this is so much easier. And
But if sound is on a massive scale like Glastonbury, I mean, it's loud. So is that any different? Does that make does it make your job any different? If that, because I mean it's like massive volume and like with speakers going everywhere. Does that make your job any harder?
it's the same, really.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the same thing. You've got the problem. Like festivals is different because you have loads of different speakers cover different areas, and you kind of, as long as you get it right where you are, it's going to be fairly good elsewhere. But places like Alexandra Palace, if you don't have the right, like, it's really echoey because it's a big glass roof in it as well, so it's really echoey. So if you don't have delay speakers, it just sounds awful in half the room because you've just got the sound going to the back of the room and bouncing back again, and it just messes it up.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah, it's kind of the same level of, difficulty, I think. But, yeah.
Okay. Any more questions, John?
I can't think right now.
I've talked shit for long enough.
No.
No.
Is there anything you'd like to tell us while you're here? Any confessions?
No, none of those.
Right, well, thank you very much.
No,
I think
well,
we'll wrap it up here.
thanks for
Thank you,
doing
that was a brilliant
Nice
interview.
one.
Thank you very much.